And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Premier Sims Gaming League YouTube channel. And I'm just making sure the microphone is still working, so last time we don't have that kind of affair. But we are back, ladies and gentlemen, live for the PSGL F3 race here in round number 9 at Portugal. And I'm very excited to be bringing you this race live. We're just starting qualifying now, 18 minutes of non-stop action and short qualifying to determine who will be starting on pole position here today. I do have to let you know, everybody, if you did not see on Twitter, much like I didn't. I will be your only commentator for this evening. There'll be no co-commentator, but I think I can keep up with all the live action here just by myself. Don't worry, I've had quite a bit of non-co-com experience, so I think I'll be able to give you a good show here nonetheless, though it may be a little bit less action-packed throughout the grid as per normal. But we're just seeing about the first minute expire, and I think we have our first drivers come out on track, and IFR Pat is certainly one of those drivers. Let's go over the standings. If I can pick up the standings real quick. They don't post the standings here. Alright, well, we're going to just go through qualifying for now, and I will pick up the standings in a second here, ladies and gentlemen, but I will try to pick them up for you shortly. This is already turning into a disaster, not having a co-com, but it's okay. We will keep on moving through. As we're running on board of IFR Pat, though I don't believe he was the first driver to come out on track. I believe the Williams Vicos Menno may have been the first driver. Let's bring up the track map. Not the telemetry. Bring that up to full, and you can also see the lap data, so you can see just how fast our drivers are going. And I do, yes, believe it is Menno, who's going to start us off here in qualifying. That long downhill sweeping right-hander coming down the line and coming just a bit uphill before, now crashing back down to earth as he comes into turn number 1. Qualifying is now officially underway as he flies into turn 1 with the DRS flap open and coming into turn 2. Let's see how he does on board of his lap here. A very tricky track, Portugal, especially with the more recent update, updating the handling model just a fair bit. The car for drivers, very stable. For some other drivers, not so stable. Of course, particularly would go fastest in the first sector, but I'm sure that other drivers are going to follow suit and set faster sectors throughout the session. As the Williams driver has exited out of the first sector, now into the second sector. A couple of tricky uphill corners here. Very difficult to get back on the power without spinning out the car as he's flying through the uphill section here. And that was his teammate and Joyce getting out of the way there. And I'm not sure why I said Joyce, because that's not his teammate. It's Kryptonite is his teammate. But no, it's Izu. The colors are confusing, ladies and gentlemen. The blue, the Red Bull blue and the Williams blue are very confusing sometimes, depending on your TV screen. Nonetheless, coming across the line, Menno is going to set our first time of the session, and he is going to go on with a 1:16.645, and that is going to be the first fastest time on the board. IFR Pat has set an invalid lap on this particular occasion, and it looks like he is going to go for it again and see if he can set a actually valid time on this occasion. ADRT Bedizai is in the Red Bull, and he is flying through the second sector. Sam has come across the line in second fastest, a 1:17.3. That is quite a bit far off the pace. Lewis comes across the line and goes fourth fastest. Cortez now beats Menno's time. He goes up into provisional pole position, and let's see if we can catch another time about to come through. And Amity Aroka has invalidated his time. Kryptonite is still on a valid time through the second sector as times are just flying in now. As Killcry has come across the line, it looks to be for another lap possibly. As Isaac Kush is about to finish off his first lap, though it has been a very adventurous lap, I would say, as he's only sitting in about the 1:30s before he comes across the line. Tom Rabo looks to be setting a decent lap here. Let's see what he does across the line. He's going to go up to 4 fastest behind his teammate Falk, up there in 3rd position. IFR Pat is looking to have a little bit of a better going here as he's coming around the end of Sector 3, and it looks like he'll get a pretty decent time on the board as he comes downhill through the final turn. And what's the time going to be from the Alpine driver? And he's going to put it on provisional pole by about 0.2 of a second. So IFR Pat starting us off quick here as Cortez now drops down to 2nd. Menno still in 3rd. Blaze has split the 2 Alfa Romeos. He's there in 6th position. Sorry, 5th position with a 1:16.8. Still a few drivers not without a time. Phoenix just went 12 fastest as I went on board of him. Lewis Hamilton 8. Has gone 13 fastest. Aroka and Kilcry still without a time, and Kilcry is going to dart up the line, and he is only going to go 14 fastest at that time, as I'm sure he's at Cush is looking for a pretty decent improvement on his current time at the moment as he's coming through the final turn. He's going to go uphill. Let's see what the time's going to be, and it's looking to be okay, but I'm sure he's going to want to improve. No, he's going to go into the pit lane, actually. Doesn't want to ruin up those set of tires. Devin is in 18th position. He does not have a time on the board yet, though he's about to finish off his lap coming through the 3rd sector as we ride on board with the AlphaTauri driver. And we'll see what kind of lap time he gets underway with us here as he darts down towards the start-finish line. This actually looks like a really nice lap from him, and he is going to go 2nd fastest ahead of Cortez, and he's only a couple of hundredths of a second off of IFR Pat, sitting there up in 1st position. Dutch Missile currently the only driver about a valid time on the board. He's at Cush, sitting quite a far adrift as well. It's Izu, who's with a 1:27.7, about 3 seconds faster than he's at Cush's time right there. So we have almost a full grid of times here. Dutch Missile still without one, but I'm sure he's going to want to set one as soon as possible. We'll see when the Aston Martin driver comes out of the pit lane, but all the drivers setting their first provisional lap times. Just going to check back in at the chat. Looks to be everything okay with the audio. Let me know if anything's too loud or too quiet, and I will fix that for you promptly. But IFR Pat has put himself provisionally on pole position through this first part of qualifying as all the drivers are coming back in now into the pit lane to put on a new set of tires. The track, of course, now evolving quite a fair bit in terms of pace, and the drivers can look to improve upon their previous first outings in qualifying. You're watching live coverage of Formula 3. This is the Portugal Grand Prix, the Portuguese Grand Prix, I might say. It is round number 9 of the Formula 3 Championship. If you're enjoying the action, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a like, and make sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss a live notification of when we go live here. All races throughout the week through PC and PlayStation divisions. And you're watching live coverage of the PlayStation division, I would say, for Formula 3. Dutch Missile is back out on track after not setting a first lap there on his first attempt here in qualifying, as there is about to just be 10 minutes left in the qualifying session. So drivers, let's check the details for what tires we have on the best laps. Joey and Bedazai have elected for the medium tires on their first run. So has Lewis and Izu, though Izu not a very representative lap time, and in fact if we ride on board with Izu, he has put back on now the soft tires, so he will be going for a soft tire run. The majority of drivers going for soft tires to elect to start on that tire for their first stint, as long as they get into the top 10, of course. We'll then see what they go on if they're outside the top 10. All the drivers right now, though, are on the soft compound tires, so that is the tire they would like to begin the race on, and we'll see if they decide to do so. If they make it into the, we'll see if they decide to do so if they are outside of the top 10, but I suspect that's not going to be the case. Riding on board Izu here in the Williams, sitting there in 17th position. Dutch Missile is coming through the first sector now on another lap, and we'll see if he can set a valid one here. His Aston Martin teammate is sitting P11 at the moment. Tom Ravo is coming through the second sector, and you can see there the rear end of the car stepping out there, and that could have been a pretty nasty disaster if he had not gotten control of that car. as it looks like Falk is getting out of the way of his teammate. Of course, no slipstreams allowed in PSGL, so you cannot fall your teammate behind to gain a slipstream advantage. So it's just best to get out of the way and not garner yourself a penalty, though in this part of the track it would have been a little bit more dirtier than slipstream. Nonetheless, Tom Bravo is coming through the end of the final sector. We'll see what this kind of time is going to be for him, and we'll see if he can improve from that P8 position. He's going to come across the line, and he is going to go up to P4. So a nice second lap there from the Alfa Romeo driver, and he puts himself up in the 4th position at the moment. Falk now will start his lap time just behind his Alfa Romeo teammate, who will surely like to get out of the way at some point in this lap as he catches up to his teammate. And we'll see how Falk does. Falk now back where Tom Bravo was in that 8th position slot, and we'll see if he can improve upon his time as well as his Alfa Romeo teammate gets out of the way, and Falk will continue on up his qualifying lap. Thank you everybody who's joining us live here in qualifying as Cortez is about to come across the line, and that is a 1:37, so he did not have a great second outing on his lap time there. IFR Pat looks to be letting by some drivers, including his, it looks like one of his teammates, but it doesn't look like he was on a lap time, thankfully enough, as Izu goes back in the pit lane. Oh, Isaac Kush has had a spin, almost a half spin there, coming uphill in Sector 2. And again, showing some dangers of the uphill sections here, getting the power back down. Dutch Missile did set a time, but it's a very unimpressive 1:32.9. Just a little bit slower than Isaac Kush's time, but Isaac Kush still about a really decent time, a really impressive time to show off his pace. So unfortunately, Dutch Missile is going to have to go one more time, we believe, in this session if he really wants to get a nice time lap there. But there's only about 6.5 minutes left in the session, so not a lot of time to do so. IFR Pat has gone slower by about 0.08 of a second in the first sector. So maybe hitting a bit of a cap in terms of his pace here in Portugal. But we'll see how the second and third sector improves. Oh, but an invalidation just ran a little bit wide there out of the exit. And that's an invalid lap for the man on provisional pole. Devin is still in the pit lane. Has not come out again for a second run. Still waiting for the track to get a little less clustered as Cortez is going to fly back into the pit lane and put himself on a new set of tires and maybe go for one more lap time here as 6 minutes, under 6 minutes now in the qualifying session. And Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari is on an invalid lap. That would have been a 1:22. Which would not have improved his time in any measure of the word. Kilcry, meanwhile, is looking very nice and tidy through the final turn right there as he's going to come across the line, and a slight improvement is going to put him up to P13, so a decent job right there, moving himself up some positions. Isaac Kush now is sitting last on the grid after Dutch Missile. A very impressive third place time right there. I didn't quite see that, apologies. But Dutch Missile puts himself up into the 3rd position there, a really nice time from a driver who has struggled through a good part of the season, but a nice qualifying session here would surely boost his confidence coming into the race and maybe give him a really nice finishing position here. But coming across into the pit lane is the Dutch Missile, and he sits on the 2nd row of the grid alongside Cortez. M&T Aroka, meanwhile, also now just comes into the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton is also now there in 4th position. The other Lewis in the Ferrari, 2 Lewises, thankfully not exactly the same name, as we'll see how Lewis 11004 will get on with this time to lap here. He's sitting for 117.5. That's only netting him an 18th position on the grid at the moment, so he's definitely going to want to improve there, but he's not going to do so. He did set a fastest second sector, but he invalidated the lap in the process, so unfortunately Lewis is still going to be sitting there in 18th position. And that may have been his last chance to set a lap time here, as we're probably about in the last 4 minutes of the session. Yep, just the last 4 minutes of the session. Devin is back on track. He was waiting quite a fair bit there. And we'll see how the AlphaTauri driver gets underway. He's sitting on the 1st row of the grid, of course, would like to make a provisional pole, as we saw there IFR Pat just letting by. No, that was not actually, that was the other, that was Isaac Kush getting by IFR Pat. Devin now coming through the 3rd sector, and we'll see what kind of time we expect to see from the driver right here, as he's flying around into the final turn, and it's looking like a really nice and tidy lap here from Devin as he comes around the final turn just at that 1:10 mark. This could be a really nice time here as he's going to come across the line, and he is going to put it on pole. It's a 1:16.2 flat, and that's provisional pole position now for Devin in the fleeting moments of this qualifying session. IFR Pat moves down to second position. Dutch Missile still there in third as he's on another outlap looking to improve his time. A really nice spot for him at the moment. Let's see if he can improve even more so. Joey is sitting in ninth position, far adrift from his Aston Martin teammate with an invalid lap on his hands here, so that's not going to improve his time, even if it was faster. Izu also on an invalid lap. We see Kryptonite there sitting in 12th position, just into the cusp of the top 10, and we'll see if he can do so, as he's on a flying lap of his own right now. Still valid on track, as a corner right there, we've seen a few drivers overextend. Kryptonite stays very much in. Sem is in 13th position, and he is going a little slow right here, maybe warming up his tires for another lap, trying to make sure he doesn't wear them out too much. Phoenix, meanwhile, in the second sector, is flying through the Portuguese circuit here in the Red Bull, which we will be seeing donned a new livery in F1 soon with the special edition Honda livery, that white and red livery, honoring the tradition of the Red Bull-Honda relationship, though a short relationship has netted quite a lot of success for the Red Bull team as of recent years, as Phoenix is going to come across the line. He's going to improve by a little bit, but that's only going to net him a P15 at the moment, and that will probably be his final lap of the session. Hamilton, Bedizai, and Lewis are all going to be sitting there in 16th, 17th, and 18th. And Isaac Kush, of course, as well. Let's not forget about him, as he's going to come across the line right here. And he is going to go up all the way to 6th position. And finally, the AlphaTauri driver finally gets a representative time on the board. But he is outside the top 5, and that's probably where he's going to stay at the moment unless drivers improve upon him. He's just making sure to get out of the way of any of the other drivers starting their timed laps. Let's ride on board of IFR Pat. He's the man sitting in second position. Was on provisional pole position for a majority of the lap. Oh, look at this. It's raining. It is raining here in Portugal, ladies and gentlemen. Rain in qualifying, and this could lead to disaster for the rest of the drivers here, as Joey has retired in the lap right there. He's sitting in 10th position, retires in the pit lane, but it is drizzling here in Portugal, and that could not mean good news for the driver sitting out there on those tires. IFR Pat, he's just getting out there now at the very beginnings of this weather change here in Portugal, and we'll see if this affects the driving standards out there and if IFR Pat can improve. It's looking okay, seemingly stable through the rest of the lap, but we'll see what the Sector 2 split's going to be for him if he improves upon it at all. The rain can really, really hamper your pace here. He is only slower by about 15 hundredths of a second. It's only 90 hundredths of a second to pole position, as Aroka has improved upon the time, though. IFR Pat, meanwhile, actually has moved down to third position, so Aroka has put himself on the front row of the grid for the moment. Does IFR Pat have a response coming through the final sector here? Can IFR Pat improve upon this time? Coming across the line, what's the time going to be for the Alpine driver? And he's just not going to improve enough. 21 hundredths of a second slower, and Aroka is on the front row of the grid unless somebody else has something to say about it. Dutch Missile can, he's invalid on this particular lap, and Ablaze is quite a far bit off the pace coming through the end here, as well as Isaac Kush. And it looks like some other drivers are following suit. That's an invalid lap for Tom Rabo. And Menno, meanwhile, is going to come across the line. We'll see what he does. Can he improve on his lap? No, he does not improve, and I think that is all we're going to see here in qualifying. We do have Lewis still on a timed lap, though, and he is slower in his second sector by a couple hundredths of a second. And he almost collided with the Alpine there, who was quite close to him coming out the exit of that turn. Bedizai, meanwhile, is going to come across the line. No, he's not. He's going to come across the line into the pit lane is what he's going to do. And that is it for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Aroka moves up to second. Devin is on pole position here for the Portuguese Grand Prix. And the rain has dampened expectations here, ladies and gentlemen. For some of the drivers here in this qualifying session. I can finally catch my breath. Qualifying, always a very tricky part of the race to commentate, but nonetheless, Devin with a very nice qualifying session there puts himself on pole for this race. So that's the end of qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and as you can see there, Devin is on pole. Aroka has joined him on the top row of the grid, and IFR Pat, who was on provisional pole for most of the session, actually moves down to third at the end there, and I'm sure the rain did not help his endeavors at all, given he was only slower by just a little bit in those sectors. I think he may have been able to improve quite a fair bit. But that is your man fastest in qualifying. That is Devin in the AlphaTauri, who has put it on pole. And it's going to be Aroka in second with Pat in third, Dutch Missile in fourth. The top five will be honed to a blaze. Cortez in sixth with Isaac Cush in seventh, Falk and Tom Rebel in ninth, and 10th for Menno. That rounds off the top 10. Joey RC, ADRT, Izu, and Lewis are 11th, 12th, and 13th respectively, with Kryptonite in 14th, Sam in 15th, Killcry sitting there in 16th with Phoenix in 17th, Lewis Hamilton sitting there in 18th position. The Ferrari and Betazai is down at the bottom of the grid there with a 117.3 on the medium tire in 19th position. And that is the end there of qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Let's now get into the race. 50% race here around Portugal. We'll see what the weather conditions are going to be. It was starting to rain here in qualifying. Will we see that type of weather follow suit into the race? As we're just loading up into the pit lane, we'll see what the weather conditions happen to be, and it is overcast conditions, though no sign of rainfall. We'll see if it travels into rainfall as we move on through the race. I could see rain being a very tricky condition to handle here at the Portugal circuit, given it is already so very slippery here in the dry. But nonetheless, we're just about to get underway with our opening lap. I do not know if formation lap is off. The worst still talks about desync issues, and I do know that in Jacko we were not running on the formation lap due to those desync issues, so I'll wait and see if the formation lap is off, and then if it is, I will not be able to go over the grid one more time for you, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're in the comment section, give your thoughts. Who's going to win the race here, ladies and gentlemen, as we're 3, 2, 1 away, and we'll see what type of red lights we get underway here. And it is going to be just a single red light, and we have a formation lap, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go over the starting lineup for your Portuguese Grand Prix. And it is Devin in the AlphaTauri, who has put it on pole position here today in Portugal, with Aroka alongside him on the second row of the grid. It is IFR Pat, who is on the third row of the grid, with Dutch Missile down there in fourth now. He did go down a position because of Aroka, but still in the second row of the grid, with Blaze in fifth, Cortez in sixth, Isaac Cush in seventh, Falk and Tom Rabo, the two Alfa Romeos, once again line astern there in 8th and 9th position, and Menno rounding off the top 10. All the top 10 drivers are going to be running on the soft compound tire. Joey RC down to Sam, 11th through 15th are on the medium compound tire. That's Izu, Lewis, and Kryptonite between the two drivers. Killcry has elected to go onto the hard tires for the start of this race, and he will start 16th on the grid, with Phoenix on the mediums in 17th. Lewis and Betazai in 18th and 19th on the grid, and the Ferrari and Red Bull respectively also are going to start on the medium compound tire. It's a 33-lap race around here in the Portuguese circuit, which I'm sure is going to bring lots of good racing action. Seb right there in the comment section, Pat all the way, sitting there in third position. Certainly is a nice place to start if you're looking to capture a victory here today. As we see there, Devin is just trying to warm up his tires. Still no sign of rainfall, though. It is overcast conditions here in Portugal, so we'll see if the rainfall decides to bless the rains down here in Portugal. I'm sorry I said that. It was terrible. As we're going to get ready for the 5 red lights. You're watching live coverage of Formula 3 from PSGL. My name is VSR Clark, also Noah Clark, known more commonly in the commentary booth here. I am going to be your only commentator for this evening, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to promise to bring you the best action I can on track today. It is Devin alongside with Amity Aroka now just lining up on his position. There is Pat and the Dutch Missile in the second row of the grid sitting there as well. And we're just seeing there as Betazai lines up on his pole position slot there as Cortez finally catches up to the rest of the pack. And we're about ready, ladies and gentlemen. Betazai just lining up into his grid position slot. We're getting ready for the 5 red lights. The engines will roar here in Portugal. with 33 laps on the board. And here we go. It's 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights here in Portugal. And the lights are out, and away we go. And it's hard to see who got a good start. Looks like the Haas of Cortez is moving to the outside, but Devin gets a great start. And IFR Pat has moved up in the second position. Aroca has been jumped in, now down to third. And it looks like we had a Haas of Cortez who may have been going wide off track, but it is now almost line astern coming through the first part of this race here, as Devin is ahead of Pat, ahead of Aroca. Blaze in fourth position. Tom Rabo moving up the fifth position. What a great start for him. We've Isaac Kush in sixth position. Menno in seventh. Falk in eighth position with Joey RC down. And he's getting overtaken right there by one of the Renaults. That is Izu as he slots behind him. Sorry, no. That's the Williams of Izu, who sits there. And look at this. Tom Rabo and a Blaze are going side by side, looking to capture fourth position as a Blaze from Tom Rabo. Tom Rabo has the outside line coming through the turn. Now we'll have the inside. Oh, but they make contact. The McLaren turning into the Alfa Romeo right there. Actually, he gets the move done. The McLaren getting a little bit of vengeance there for that little tap on the rear end there. And Tom Bravo is going to move up in the fourth position. We do have some moves down the order here, as look at this, Kryptonite and Falk are going side by side coming into the final turn right here. A McLaren of Sem is trying to get involved. Sem is trying to move it around the outside of Falk. Oh, but he gets sent off track a little bit there, and that's going to hamper his expectations, as it's soft, medium, or soft, medium if you're in the top 10 right here, as Devin has gone fastest on track through the first lap. IFR Pat is falling along behind him with Hiroka in third, with Tom Bravo in fourth. A Blaze sitting there in fifth position. Isaac Kush there in sixth position. Dutch Missile has made a move on his teammate RC. Dutch Missile has had an awful start in this race. He was sitting in the second row of the grid, has moved all the way down to almost the last position in the point scoring positions. Dutch Missile is going to have a lot of work to do to get back up into that really nice fourth position that he had in qualifying. You see Lewis there is really up on the back of Joey RC. Sem is having a battle meanwhile with the Red Bull there, but now both the Red Bulls are going side by side. They don't want to crash here. Their teammates, ooh, it's getting a little dicey. They're giving each other plenty of room though, lots of respect between the two. And oh, that's a spin. Oh, it's Dutch Missile. And his race has gone from bad to absolute worst possible place here, as Falk down in 19th, Dutch Missile now down in 18th. You could go for a soft hard strategy, or again, the soft, medium strategy. But Dutch Missile has spun a couple. Oh, he's almost spun it again. And he might have to make a pit stop early, as those tires may have seen worse for wear. Falk is on the hard tires, and looks like he just made a pit stop, so he must have had some damage on the first part of that race. Tom Bravo, meanwhile, seems to be the man who is fastest on track. A 1:19.2 is the fastest lap time of the session, as he is behind Aroca, but back by about 1.4 seconds. Meanwhile, Devin has had a really nice start, didn't have any challengers in the turn one. IFR Pat got a great start as well, off the jump from Aroca, and now IFR Pat can set his sights on Devin. It is lap 3, so the DRS is activated. Drivers can open up the rear flap from their car and increase their top end speed by about 10 to 7 miles per hour. And that could pay a lot of big dividends, as we can see Bedazai and Sem were side by side for a moment there, but Sem has got past Bedazai and up in the 12th position. So you're to see there with Falk sitting there in 19th position. It has not been a good start for the Alfa Romeo driver. His teammate has had an opposite start. It's been a great start. He's now in 4th position, just off of the podium. But again, Tom Bravo is back by 1.8 seconds. So a Blaze is catching him on and is going to look to close in that gap. We'll see if Tom Bravo can stick it there in 4th for a while, or if he's going to come under pressure from the McLaren or the AlphaTauri, because Isaac Kush is definitely putting on the pressure here. He's going to have DRS on this occasion. I think he's going to be challenging a Blaze well before turn number 1 starts. And yes, up in the 5th position. Meanwhile, IFR Pat can only move up into Kryptonite. Yep, Kryptonite's had a spin, and he is now in the pit lane. He comes back onto the track, but down in 18th position now. And the Alpines also having almost opposite starts here. Kryptonite, pretty awful start. Pat looking pretty good here. He's about half a second back from Devin, and looking really strong here, and looking to possibly make a move in the next couple of laps here. We'll see if he can move up into the lead of the race. Devin, though, pretty much a flawless start. Now let's see if he can keep up the pace through the rest of the race. So I got there, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of nice rhyming here in the commentary booth. I have to do all I can for you, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of a solo act here tonight, but I'm going to do my best to give you all the action that's going out on track. But we're riding on board with IFR Pat here, 7/10 back from the AlphaTauri driver, looking to make it up into the lead of this race as they're coming through the third sector now, and they're about to come into the final turn. And let's see how well the DRS can assist IFR Pat. He's back by about 7/10 of a second on this lap. And we're going to ride on board. DRS flap opens just about there, and we'll see if this means he can get past Devin. He's closing up. He's getting very, very close. He gets within half a second, but just a bit too far back, and will have to fall back for the moment. So we'll see if a DRS train starts to form, as Isaac Kush is now finally caught up to Tom Robo. Blaze is still very much in the mix, though. He is not let by Isaac Kush that easily, and is going to look for a counterattack soon. But Tom Robo now has some difficulties. He's trying to break the slipstream of the AlphaTauri driver, who, unfortunately, maybe because of that, was not able to make the pass there, and is staying in 5th position. Blaze, meanwhile, is trying to find an avenue where maybe he can make a sneaky attack up on the inside of the AlphaTauri driver right there of Isaac Kush. But all three drivers are running pretty line astern. Izu and Menno are right up there in 7th and 8th position, putting on the pressure from the Williams garage. And Joey RC, meanwhile, under pressure from Lewis, who is in the final points-paying positions here in 10th. That is back by 1.2 seconds on all those drivers. Looking very, very close here of Isaac Kush, and I do believe he is going to be able to make this move on this particular part of the track. Only 3/10 back. Blaze may get involved as well. He's back by 5/10 of a second. Meanwhile, look at IFR Pat. He's really putting the pressure on Devin now. He may make a move on the inside, but just a bit too far back. Meanwhile, Isaac Kush has made the move on Tom Robo and up in the 4th position, but IFR Pat was also very close, but just couldn't get within an overtake window. But you can see there, IFR Pat clearly has the better pace with the DRS, and maybe just clearly a little bit more comfortable. Ooh, and he gets right up onto the back of the rear diffuser of Devin right there. He doesn't want to pick up any damage, because that's simply going to hinder his opportunity here to get into the lead of this race very early on. It's only lap number 6 of this Grand Prix, but IFR Pat a little unstable from the rear, but Devin also did not have great traction coming out of that turn. The big thing for Pat here is he has to stay within about that half a second window. He can't move back into the 7/10 of a second window at the end of this lap, because it really, you just can't get that close with the DRS if you're that far back. It's about 6/10 of a second right now, and I don't believe this is going to be an attacking lap for IFR Pat. Gets it within half a second, though, as they're heading up towards the end of turn number 1 here. So we'll see now. IFR Pat has an upper opportunity for an attack. He puts on the DRS. Actually, some really awesome slipstream on this particular occasion. Devin is going to probably have to concede this position. We're going to see what the defense is here from Devin around the outside coming into turn 1. And IFR Pat has the advantage, but here comes on the inside Devin. Devin now may have the advantage coming into the turn. They're still side by side coming through the turn here. Now Pat with the inside, and now Pat takes the lead of the race. A very nice little side-by-side action there between Pat and Devin. But Pat has finally, after a lapse of waiting, finally putting himself up into the lead of the race. I will show you the warnings right now, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for that. The warnings are from Sem, Phoenix, and Missile. Missile, meanwhile, has picked up another penalty. He's up to 9 seconds now. Phoenix and Sem are on 3 seconds. So Pat has finally put himself up into the lead of the race, with Devin now in 2nd. M&T Aroka is now splitting the 2 AlphaTauri, sitting there in 3rd. Isaac Kush has gone ahead of Tom Rabo, and now Tom Rabo may start to feel the pressure from a Blaze. You're watching live coverage of Formula 3, and I will be back in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, well, I don't think I am going to have to be, because Devin is right up onto the back of Pat. I was just going to take a little bit of a breather moment right there, but here we go. Devin now going for the counter-offensive. These two are going to be racing quite a fair bit in this particular part of the race for a while, and Devin, much easier pass on Pat. Pat did not have a great first lap in the lead of the race, and Devin swiftly has taken back that lead, and he has moved back down to 2nd position. Aroka is right in the mix right there. He is trying to catch up there. as we're getting some support from the chat right there. But as these two battle, Aroka is now just going to be able to claw back more pace and possibly find himself right in the mix of this lead for the race. But Aroka, nice, strong race so far, 2 seconds ahead of Isaac Kush, sitting there in 4th position. Cortez looking, meanwhile, has made a pass at the bottom of the track right there. Behind is Phoenix. Well, Phoenix looking for a counter move here. I think Cortez is just going to get on with his day. So Devin back in the lead, but Pat is still right there, about 0.5 of a second back. And we'll see if he can look to make the move on this particular part of the lap. Again, on the start-finish line as they're humming around the penultimate turn and then the final turn. Aroka is now right there in the mix as well, so this might get very dicey coming into turn 1. Here comes IFR Pat. Does he have the slipstream? Probably not as well as this time. He's probably going to get very, very close, but just a bit too far back, and he's going to have to settle for staying in P2 for the moment. I'll be right back with you, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to take a bit of a breather. Watching live coverage of Formula 3. This is the Portugal Grand Prix, and Devin is in the lead of the race. I am back, ladies and gentlemen. It is about to be lap number 10 of this Grand Prix. IFR Pat is in 2nd position, is now falling back with the DRS. Meanwhile, we have a pit stop for Isaac Kush. So Isaac Kush starts off the pit stops here for the race, and we'll see what tire he goes on. Is he going to select the medium compound tire and go for a 2-stop with the mediums? We're just watching on board of the pit lane right there as Cortez also makes his pit stop off the soft compound tire. And yes, onto the medium tires is Isaac Kush. And Cortez, I believe, is going to probably follow suit as well. So, IFR Pat still in 2nd position, but will we start to see the leaders now make their pit stops? They're on 9-lap-old soft compound tires here. It's lap number 10 of this Grand Prix, and we'll see if they decide to elect to make the pit stop now. Devin in the lead with Pat in 2nd, Aroka in 3rd. Are they all going to follow suit, or is somebody going to try to make an overcut strategy work here? It is quite a long pit lane here in Portugal, so an overcut strategy could work out. We'll see if any drivers decide that is the course of action they're going to be making, but they're just coming around the penultimate turn right here. And we're going to see now if the pit stops start to come into play here as Devin is coming. He's cutting very, very close, and I think he is going to be making his pit stop. No, he decides against it. Pat into the pit stop, and so does Aroka. Aroka looked like he was almost waiting for somebody else to make that decision for him, and Aroka has come into the pit lane behind IFR Pat. So has a lot of other drivers. Izu, meanwhile, has stayed out, of course, on the mediums, and Menno, behind his teammate, is also still out in 3rd position. But Devin is going to look to make this overcut strategy work. Will it play off, though? Devin stays in the lead of the race. Of course, he is not elected to take the pit stop. Will he do it on the next lap? Will this overcut strategy work? Is he going to do it on the next lap? Maybe he thinks he can extend it a little bit more, get a little bit more life out of these soft compound tires, make those mediums just a little bit more grippy on the second part of this race. But we'll see how it plays out. Just coming back to the penalties here, Lewis has picked up 3 seconds, and Lewis Hamilton is still on 9 seconds, with Phoenix and Sem still also on their 3-second time penalties. Devin is sitting there in 1st position. Now Izu still ahead of Menno. Menno might be struggling here a little bit, and I believe he's not going to be too happy with his teammate. He'd like to get past his teammate, given that those soft tires are going to just grain just quite a bit more being behind him. Let's see if Devin makes his pit stop now. Yes, he does. Pit stop for the leader. So Izu is going to get the lead of this race. Does Menno fall into the pit lane? No, he doesn't. Two Williams are going to be 1-2 in this race. Meanwhile, the big question here is for IFR Pat. He is just behind Lewis. We're going to see here if Devin gets out of the pit lane first. He puts on the medium compound tire. IFR Pat is just coming around the final turn here. I think Devin may have made this work. Let's see. As they're coming down the pit lane, it's going to get quite close here, ladies and gentlemen. But at the end of the day, I think IFR Pat is going to be way too far back. Yes, he is. And Devin has made this work. He's still in the lead. IFR Pat slots back in the second position. And Lewis Hamilton actually is ahead of Aroka. That is not good for Aroka, as Aroka now on his new medium compound tires is behind a Ferrari, and that's going to stunt his growth in this race just a little fair bit. And Isaac Kush sitting there at 13th. But Devin has made this pit stop strategy work, and now, though, he has to contend with getting ahead of Kryptonite here. Who is on a much more used set of medium compound tires, but those mediums still have quite a fair bit of laps to go in this race before those runners will decide to make their stops. But Devin has to quickly dispatch of this Alpine driver if he wants to continue on with this race effectively, because Pat is still right up there in the mix of it. Devin may wait just a bit here. He could capture some DRS from Kryptonite, but I think his main objective is just to get ahead of him. Kryptonite, you can see they're really struggling to get out of the turns. The traction just not as good as these drivers now on their new mediums here. As here comes Devin. We have a move up there as that's Menno making his pit stop. Devin is trying to get past, but this is really struggling here. He can't get quite past him. Here comes Kryptonite, meanwhile, making a pass on Sem. Sem makes a little bit of contact on the rear diffuser of Kryptonite, but Kryptonite up in the 6th. But here comes Devin on the inside of Sem. Sem is going to try to hang it on the inside, and this is getting tricky here. The drivers yet to make pit stops on their mediums, now giving some trouble to the drivers who just came out on their mediums. On the inside, though, and look at this! IFR Pat is looking to get ahead of Devin there, trying to take advantage. Sem just has to get out of the way. He just kind of... He was looking to challenge there. It looked like he just kind of darts the outside like, yeah, guys, just go through. I'm just going to move on with my race, because now he's got Lewis to contend with, who's sitting there on the bottom of the point-scoring positions there. But this is very, very close. But here comes IFR Pat now. Going to try to make up some time on Devin. Sem, though, is still very much in the mix there. As, yes, I believe he has picked up another penalty right there. Yep, 12 seconds now for Lewis Hamilton. 6 seconds for Sem, 6 seconds for Phoenix as well. Meanwhile, Phoenix, they're sitting in 5th. Kryptonite in 6th position. He is now been passed by Devin, who finally dispatches of him. Pat gets ahead of his teammate rather easily. Sem is going to try to go back for the counter-offensive on the outside. Oh, it almost loses the car there as he looked to have tried to make a very risky switchback, and now there's some ghosting going on as Lewis Hamilton makes it up into 9th position. Kryptonite, I have to say, it makes it a lot easier to commentate on him, given it's just a real F1 name. But nonetheless, Kryptonite gets out of the way of Pat. Sem looked to have made a very nice switchback, but the car just was not in an optimal grip range to do that kind of move, and the car said no, 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 and he had a really big snap there. Now Tom Rabo is in attacking position. Still some pit stops to see from the top runners here, as Izu is still out on track in the lead of this race with the other Lewis of the Ferrari in 2nd position. Joey RC in 3rd position, and he will stay out, predictably enough. Meanwhile, it's right back on board of Devin right here, as IFR Pat is 0.8 of a second back, so maybe now a little bit more of a waiting game, as some drivers may be settling into their race pace. Now it's about 0.7 of a second. He will have the DRS, but I don't think he's going to have enough slipstream to be making a pass on this particular occasion. No, he's going to be quite a far ways back from Devin, and it's going to just maybe settle into the race a little bit more as Tom Rabo has made it past Sem. Look at this. Really nice battle for the final point scoring position here. As look at this. Ablaze has made a pass on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton is struggling. He's got a lot of penalties, and he doesn't quite have a lot of pace right now. Here comes Hiroka, going to go on the inside of the Ferrari, and he is going to move himself up into 12th position. So Lewis Hamilton quickly losing positions here in the Ferrari, down in 13th position with Ablaze in 11th position and Sem in 10th position. Bravo sitting there in 9th. Sem is going to try to make an offensive and get himself up into a higher point scoring position. Menno now has got past Hamilton. Hamilton is really struggling on those medium tires. On the medium tires, starting to see the end of their lifespan as Lewis has struggled in this second part of the race as the soft tire runners have made their pit stops. We know they're on newer tires, but Lewis Hamilton really struggling. As you can see there, just getting the power on how much wheel spin he's getting out of those tires. Lewis may have to make an early pit stop here if he has any chance of getting a nice position in this race. We'll see if he decides to go for the pit stop. No, he does not, but still very squirmy out of the final turn right there. Meanwhile, IFR Pat stays back in 7th position. Ablaze has made it past his teammate up into 10th. Sem down to 11th position. I don't think those two drivers are going to fight each other too hard given the circumstances, but we'll see if Sem makes an offensive and goes back for the 10th position in that race. Meanwhile, Joey is catching up to Lewis here. He might be looking to make a move up in the 2nd position in this one. IFR Pat still keeping up close with Devin. This race is not over, ladies and gentlemen, but the big question is how much is Pat holding back? As you can see there, as they're coming into the final part of the lap, he starts to move back a little bit into about that 7 to 8 tenths of a second range there, and now it's almost 9 tenths of a second actually, as it looks like Devin may have put on the afterburners here on this lap. And I think that, of course, the main goal for Devin is to break the DRS for IFR Pat. That's going to stump IFR Pat's pace here. And it's getting very, very close to that. It was 9.9 tenths of a second back coming into the final turn there. IFR Pat is struggling to keep up with the AlphaTauri, and this is not going to fall good suit for his race. He has to stay within DRS range through all the stints here if he has any chance of picking up a victory here today. Devin and Pat do not have penalties. Just bring back up the detail there of the penalties there, just so you can see Lewis Hamilton on 12, Sem on 6, Ablaze, Bedizai and Lewis with 3 seconds, and Phoenix with 6 seconds. Kryptonite is behind his teammate, but by about 3 seconds, so he's lost quite a fair bit of pace, of course, to his new medium fresh teammate, as Menno has made it past Roca up into 12th position. Another seemingly popular overtaking opportunity right there towards the end of the first sector, as Roca is going to look to try to make it past him again. Menno, meanwhile, is really putting the pressure on Sem. And just watching with the gaps here at the leaders here, the provisional leaders here, they will be in just a little while once these drivers finally make their pit stops here at the top. But Izu has stayed out for the moment. Lewis as well, and most of those medium tire runners still out in this race. 17 laps on the medium tires here, with Devin on his 5-lap-old tires and Pat on his 6-lap-old tires. So there will be a slight grip advantage into the later stages of this race, but it is only going to be very minor. Meanwhile, Tom Bravo has made it past Ablaze, and Aroka and Sem are going side by side. Here comes Aroka on the inside. Sem is trying to hang it around the outside, but he just doesn't quite have the grip, but he's going to go for a switch back and try to put it on the outside. MNT Aroka, though, knows that's not really feasible, and he's going to stay here in 12th. Is Sem going to go for a dive bomb on the inside? He may have thought about it. It looked like he nudged the car a little bit to the inside, but has decided against it and will continue on with his race, sitting there now in 12th. The final point scoring position is home to Kryptonite still, with Menno chasing suit in 11th. Ablaze down there in 9th. Pat still back by about 8 tenths of a second. It moves around 9 tenths of a second, especially in the final part of this lap. So we're starting to see here. Let me plug in my controller so it doesn't die on us during the stream. That would be no good, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just find the end of this USB end. Oh my goodness, I didn't even see Izat was out. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. There's been a lot of action here, but Izat Kush is out of this race. I'm not too sure what happened, but he is out of the Portuguese Grand Prix, And that's a little bit of a lapse in judgment on my part. I do apologize. But meanwhile, we do have a bit of another story on our hands here as Meno is ahead of Kryptonite and up into the points. But really another problem here is Pat. Pat is losing more and more time to the back of Devin. It's now 0.8 of a second through a much earlier part of the lap here. Devin is starting to break that DRS train that Pat has had for a very long part of this race, through most of the half of this race. But now he's finally catching up, and here, that's the first time we've seen it. It's a second gap to Pat from Devin. Or Pat to Devin, or Devin to Pat. Words can't speak quite clearly here, I see. But Pat is now outside of a second as they're coming through the penultimate turn. This is very crucial. Now Pat does not have DRS, and he is not going to be able to keep up with Devin. Devin can start to fly away with this race as Bedizai and Joey are into the pit lane. So those medium tire runners still on their mediums have finally elected, and they will go onto the soft tires, presumably for the end of the race. So a one-stop strategy for all those drivers. Of course, the pit lane strategy presented by Amazon Web Services does not tend to reflect the actual pit stop strategies that anybody takes during the race. But Devin has got a very crucial part of his race done. He has gotten Pat out of his DRS range. 1.5 seconds is that gap now, and now Devin can use up this time to finish off the race well and good without the threat of an attack from Pat. Big question is, even though Devin does have newer tires, will Devin conserve his tires better than Devin? Devin is moving back a little fair bit. Maybe Pat is going to play this a little more smart. Maybe he doesn't use his tires up as much as Devin. Devin may be looking for very fast laps to continue to build that gap. We'll see who has the better tires towards the end of this race. Evidently, we'll see it in the driving standard. Lewis is still out on this race, so is Sem. These medium tire runners, these guys don't necessarily have as much of an advantage, as Phoenix is into the pit lane, as so is 80, and so is Izu, who stays out in the Ferrari, and he is still in the lead of this race. But those drivers down there on their mediums don't have really as much of an advantage as the drivers who didn't have any mistakes, because their pit stops are going to put them way down the order. As Sem is looked to have made a move on Izu. Izu looks to make it around the outside, much like Sem tried to, but that didn't really work out. But here comes Izu. He's going to move on to the inside. Can he make it past McLaren again? Yes, he can, up into 9th position, and moves himself just a fair bit more up into the points order. Bedizai, meanwhile, has made it past Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton is just struggling a lot here. Let's bring up the penalties here. It's now 15 seconds of penalties. Thank you, Bonnie, for the clarification there. Apologies again for missing that one. But Phoenix with 9 seconds. Dutch Missile with 3 seconds. There's a lot of 3 seconds. Lewis has 8 seconds of his own right to worry about. 6 seconds for Sem still. So that's your penalties at the moment in this race. But Lewis is Lewis finally makes his pit stop onto the softs. Devin and Pat retake the positions they were in. But it is a very different story now in this later part of the race. Devin is in the lead of Pat. 2.6 seconds is the gap between those drivers. And now it's going to be a much easier race for Devin as long as he can keep those medium tires and a much better window than Pat. Devin has the pit stop advantage of when he made the pit stop for those tires, but does he have the tire conservation advantage? Is he a better tire conservationist, or can Pat keep those tires in a much more comfortable window and maybe towards the end of this race claw back that gap? Though it is a very long shot. In most cases, I would say that's probably not going to be the case. Meanwhile, Aroka is finally going to try to dispatch Kryptonite here. Kryptonite is still on his tires. So is Hamilton. Kilcry is on the hard, so I do expect he'll be on for quite a bit longer into this race, and of course put on the softs towards the end. But Kryptonite is really having a nice race here, at least on for the moment. He is going to drop quite a fair bit, of course. His advantage with those medium tires is pretty much gone completely out the window when he decides to finally make that pit stop. Of course, he'll be extremely fast towards the end of this race. Finally makes that pit stop. Aroka is in 6th position for the moment, but here comes Izu. Izu is looking to possibly make a move on the inside of Aroka. He looks on the inside, doesn't quite have the very end of that DRS train to make the pass there. So he did have a lot of slipstream, but just at the end there, the car just kind of quit out on him and he couldn't quite make the move on the inside. Tom Rabo is sitting there in 4th position, looking to try to get past Ablaze. It's very much line of stern between 4th and 5th position here. And Izu, meanwhile, is right up onto the back of Aroka. Aroka is having some troubles with this Williams driver, both powered by that Mercedes engine. And look at this. Izu has a really nice run here. This is not a particular overtaking opportunity, but I don't think Izu cares. He's going to put it on the inside. Now we have the outside line, a little bit of a swivel from the rear, and Aroka still has the inside now. But here comes the outside move of Izu, and Izu has made a very nice move on a very much part of the track where you don't quite expect a move there. Very nice move from the Williams driver, and now he might be looking to make a move on his other Williams compatriot, 0.2 of a second back from him. This could be a very dicey move, and he might make himself up into 5th position. Let's see if he can do so. He's got the DRS, but so does Menno, and I just don't think, I think they pretty much equaled each other out. But a move on the inside from Joey, and Aroka is moving down positions quite quickly here. Not a great last part of the race for him. Struggling to get those medium tires into operating window here. So Joey is up into 7th. Of course, he is on the soft tires, so he does have a much better grip advantage here. Oh, the Williams drivers, I think they're making a bit of contact. Meadow has forced his way past Izu, and Izu will try to follow suit again. The Williams drivers getting a little touchy with each other. Again, your teammates, don't be too touchy. Apologies again, they make more contact, and Izu is saying, hold on, man, I have the tire advantage, let me by here. And he's really pressing the matter here. He's on the outside again. Can he do the same thing that he did again? I don't think. Oh, he now makes a switch back on the inside. He makes more contact with his teammate, and Menno is not making this easy. Menno now moves back down into 6th position. Meanwhile, Joey is right up onto the back of this Williams, and I think the battle is not so much now Menno and Izu. It might now be Joey and Menno. Here comes Joey. What an amazing slipstream he has here. He's moving to the inside. Menno is squeezing him into the inside part of the line here. Joey on the inside, though, has the advantage coming through the turn. Gets past the Williams, up into 6th position. Menno is down to 7th. Izu is in 5th position and will now try to gain some advantage here, but Joey is right there with him, so don't expect too much. Meanwhile, the gap 3.5 seconds for Pat between Devin and him. I think the only thing that could save Pat would possibly be a penalty, and if he knows he has a penalty, then maybe. But what a great Portuguese Grand Prix here, as Devin has had a fantastic race. Blaze does have a penalty, though. Tom Rabo could be looking to pick up a 3rd position, and I'm sure Izu as well also knows that very much to be the case. Joey, I think he may even have vision of that, and we'll look to make a move, but he does have a penalty of his own right, so he may be moving down some positions. Menno is stuck in a penalty sandwich here, and stuck in a penalty sandwich between Lewis and Joey. So is Aroka, and Aroka has a lot of penalties behind him as well to deal with. Here comes Aroka, though. Lewis actually on Menno. Here comes a pass for the Ferrari of Lewis on the inside of Menno, and Menno moves down another position. So Menno is having some problems here at the end of this one. Those medium tires are not quite working out for him. Some will say it's a bit of a DRS train. I'd say it's an overtaking train. We've seen some very nice moves in this race. Blaze is now in the podium position still with that penalty, but Tom Rabo, he will gain it on penalties as long as he stays well throughout the rest of the race, but I think he would much rather make the move on track and get a very well-deserved P3 in this Portuguese Grand Prix. The top two, though, they've started to really run away with this one. with Pat up by 5.7 seconds to a blaze, and Devin now 4 seconds the gap between him and Pat. Devin has really had a fantastic race here, and he is about to lap Cortez in the Haas, who is down there in 17th position. Falk there at 18th. It's been a pretty gruesome race for the Alfa Romeo driver. I believe, well, I will be looking on the details here. So it's 18 seconds for Lewis Hamilton. The other Lewis has 8 seconds. Joey RC, meanwhile, has made a pass on Izu, who has 5 seconds of his own right. So there's all the Lewises have penalties. Meanwhile, these two are banging wheels of each other, as Joey is going to maybe make a move on the inside there. But here comes Izu, though, and it looks like Joey may have had a little bit of an issue here. Is this going to be a double move from Izu? He looked to go on the inside of two drivers there. He made it past Joey and then almost went on the inside, and he could still make this work. But here comes Tom Robo on the inside. Who's going to get the advantage? Izu has the track advantage, does make it past. Here comes Joey, though. Joey now catching up with the mistakes. It's getting very, very dicey here as Lewis might be looking for an outside move as well. Lewis now will have the inside line coming in onto Robo, and Robo is seeing his podium slip through his fingers here with all these drivers making up some moves on him. Lewis may have the advantage coming on the outside now. Here comes Tom Robo again. He has the outside line. He brakes quite a bit later, but now outbrakes himself, and Lewis gets up into 6th position. Again, I apologize for the cough there, ladies and gentlemen, but it is getting very feisty here towards the end of this race. None of the drivers looking to give up positions that easy. Here comes side by side Lewis and Joey, and it's getting very feisty in the mid-pack here. You can't quite keep up with it, as Tom Bravo has gotten past Menno, and Joey RC ahead of Tom Bravo now looking to try to get ahead of Lewis. What an exciting end to this Portuguese Grand Prix. The top end of the grid, maybe not so much, but this middle pack here, all scurrying around for positions here. Some with penalties, some with not. It doesn't quite matter. They want to get it on track. And look at Menno here. He is really starting to catch up to the back of Robo, and it's just been a back and forth battle between all of these drivers. Here comes Lewis, trying to make it on the inside of Izu. Lewis picks himself up another penalty. That is very key. Now 11 seconds for Lewis. Joey RC would surely make up the position, and maybe so will a few other drivers in this mid-pack battle. But Lewis trying to make a move on the inside, didn't quite work. They outbroke himself, and now it's gone too wide out on track, and he has picked up another 3-second time penalty, and that's not going to help his race at all. Meanwhile, though, Lewis gets a much better run out of the exit of the final turn there, and is going to get past Izu on track. Izu is not going to have to defend too much. Joey back by about 1.1 seconds there, as Joey has a nice little excursion off track, and you can see the rear there starting to complain a little bit. Those soft tires are going to start to see the end of their expected performance lifespan. They will last till the end, but they may not be as grippy and fast as they used to be. Meanwhile, Menno is still very much in the pack right there, looking to make a pass at some point. 0.3 of a second back from Robo, and Robo behind from Joey. A very nice end to this race. This mid-pack battle is bringing lots of exciting racing action here. Here comes Bedizai. He's looking to make a pass on Menno even possibly, as Menno took a really wide line coming into the turn, but Bedizai just way too far back, and even if he was thinking about that move, it just wasn't feasible. Dutch Missile. I think Phoenix has had a spin. Yes, he has. Phoenix is now down in 13th position. He has a penalty of his own right. He may make a pit stop here, maybe go for fastest lap. We'll have to wait and see. Joey has picked up another penalty, and that's not good news for him, but it's good news for the drivers behind him. Meanwhile, Izu on a bit of his own right now. He's on his own, finally, as Tom Bravo has made it past Joey. I just can't keep up with the gaps. It's just so close between everybody. Look at Menno, how close he is to the back of Joey, now making a move on the inside of Joey. And, oh, look at Bedizai just getting in the mix there as well. We'll see if there's any inside moves from these drivers here, as Bedizai looking to make an outside move now from Menno. And now Joey has a So Phoenix now has just retired from the race, so he is done with this one. Bedazai stays back from Menno. Menno stays back from Joey. Just too much to handle. It's for just one person. I said I could catch up, and I'm trying my best, ladies and gentlemen, but one man cannot control this much chaos that the mid-pack is bringing us here in this race. It is very, very feisty. Lewis and Ablaze have penalties. That means Izu is very much in the pickings for a podium position here unless he picks up a penalty of his own right. Then Tom Rabo could be very much in the mix there as well. But Izu would love to pick up a podium for Alpine here in this race. And he may as well have earned it. Very nice battling up and down the grid from all the drivers here down in 8th, 9th, 10th. Look at this. Now Ablaze and Lewis are going at it as Lewis has gone ahead of Ablaze into 3rd position, but they both have penalties, and especially Lewis has quite a fair bit of them. And here comes Joey back on the inside. Menno had made the move in the turn 1, but here comes Joey. Joey has some better traction, and now here comes Menno. He has the advantage. That inside line, very good for Menno there. Now Joey has the outside lane. Beduzai looks to make a move somewhere, can't quite make it stick. Joey is still there on the outside. Look how close it is between those two drivers. Joey is banging wheels on the rear end there with Menno. Can he make another dive on the inside? This is very, very risky stuff. Oh, he almost gets spun as Beduzai gets ahead of him as he made some contact there. Now Aroka is getting involved with it as well, and he has gone past Joey as well. Aroka right back up into the mix. Hello, Aroka. Nice to see you again. He's made it past Joey up into 9th. Joey now down to 10th. What action we are getting in this race. This is absolute madness in the last part of this race. All the drivers vying for position, and this is a sim racing dream. This is a league racing dream to see this kind of battling going on, and what a great addition this has made it to the calendar here, as here comes Beduzai on Menno, and he has put himself up into 7th position. And Joey RC has retired from the race, and I think that nudge from Beduzai is going to get looked at after the race. He was not happy with that. He did have points on his hands, but he has decided points are not good enough for him, and he is retired in this race. So Joey is out, and 4 drivers are out of this race, as Falk has retired, did not have a good race. Phoenix has also retired, and Isaac Kush retired quite a fair bit ago. I did miss that particular one. All I believe are just retirements. I don't believe anybody had an outright crash. There's a yellow flag somewhere. That is maybe for Lewis. Not too sure what that red flag is for. I think it might be for the other Lewis. Oh, no, it's an Alfa Romeo. Is it Tom Rabo? What is going on? Somebody has retired. Or was it finally Falk maybe retiring? I'm not sure. That was weird. Nonetheless, we're on the final lap of this race, and Devin is in a very commanding lead, 5.3 seconds. Lewis and Ablaze sitting there in the podium positions. Menno, is he going to look for one last pass in this race? Yes, he is. This time it's on Beduzai. Does Beduzai fight it? Not as hard as he has in the past. Menno making it back ahead. Will Beduzai go for an inside move? This time, no sirree. Lewis Hamilton has made it past Sem. Sem, I think, had a bit of a spin moment there, because now Cortez is going to finally have a pass of his own on the McLaren. They're going side by side down the start-finish line, and this will be a nice little battle here, possibly. But I think Cortez just has the advantage here. Is it raining here? It is raining. Just at the end of this race. Wow, nice game decided finally at the end there. A little bit of a drizzle coming down on track. Bonnie, you want to come up here in the co-commentators booth? Thank you so much for all the help there in the comment section. Appreciate it. But Devin, meanwhile, is going to come across the line. The rain has come down, but it has not blessed anybody else's race except Devin. He wins the Portuguese Grand Prix, and Pat has finished in 2nd position. And now Lewis and Ablaze will come across the line, but it is Izu who's going to pick up this podium position. A nice race for the Williams driver, and a very, very exciting race indeed all around. But Devin has picked up the lead of the race, and that's going to help his championship standings quite a fair bit here, ladies and gentlemen. What a fantastic race. A great addition to the PSGL calendar. Portugal has brought all the action that I expected it would, and I'm very happy to have commentated this one of my favorite races to commentate in quite a long time. Thankfully, my game didn't crash on the last 3 laps of the race, so we got to see all of it. Kilcry is going to come around the penultimate turn finally, as that rain is really starting to beat up here, and I don't believe he's going to be picking up a fastest lap of the race due to the rain at the end here. But Devin has won the Portuguese Grand Prix. I got a trophy I like to watch. There's finally a spectator's trophy? Finally! I finally get recognized for the fact that all I do on this game is commentate races. And once in a while stink in an actual race. They finally gave me a trophy for it. I feel very good about myself now. But there is Devin. There is Pat. And we also have Izu, who probably didn't expect to be sitting on the podium today, but has got a very nice podium for Alpine. What a race from everybody. Amazing job. We saw some tricky battles, maybe even some on the limit here, but nothing too dirty. And there's your winner with some penalties for the rest of the grid there. Lewis Hamilton, 24 seconds. Devin has won the race, though. IFR Pat in second, Izu in third, Ablaze in fourth. Tom Bravo rounds off the top 5, with Meadow in sixth, Aroka in seventh, Lewis in eighth position, Betazai in ninth. Kryptonite has rounded off the top 10. Now down the rest of the grid order, we have the Dutch Missile, who just missed out on points. A very poor start for him, and the race followed suit. Cortez in 12th, 13th for Sem, 14th for Lewis Hamilton, 15th for Kilcry, and Joey RC, Falk, Phoenix, and Isaac Kush all retired out of this race. Phoenix with 12 seconds of penalties, and that spin probably at the end there just kind of killed the confidence quite a fair bit. I shouldn't have done that. I tried to give a player an accolade, and it just made the stream go down. So I was like, Devin, here's your accolade for winning. No, that didn't work. But nonetheless, here, ladies and gentlemen, I do not have everybody added, so it's going to be rather difficult to get a podium interview going underway. So I am going to stop for now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to bid you farewell. Thank you, everybody who joined us live. 20 likes on there, 1 dislike, who cares? And we had about a peak viewership of 40 viewers, so thank you, everybody, for joining us live here. You were watching live coverage of Formula 3 from round number 9. It was the Portuguese Grand Prix. My name is VSR Clark, or Noah Clark, as some of you better know me as, watching throughout the season. Thank you again so much for all the support. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a race or live stream from PSGL. We have races all along the week from the PC and PlayStation divisions. Thank you so much, Bonnie. I really appreciate that. And have yourselves a wonderful night, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye from Premier Sims Gaming League's Formula 3 division. That's a screenshot. That's not the end of the broadcast.